If any of you have been on Twitter recently or read anything in the news, you may have noticed that, surprise, political polarization is still bad and causing a lot of harm to many of our political institutions and all of the things that we benefit from in a functioning democracy. We're not exactly sure what we want to do about a problem that is as systemic and as dangerous as this one, but we know that we want to do something. And our team has been taking steps this year to tackle the problem from many different angles and determine what we can do as educators and facilitators of a place like Duke to motivate people to have better political discussions. So we wanted to fill you in on what we've been doing over the past year to tackle the problem.
So here's another quote by our president, and it just demonstrates that there's a lot of arrogance within our political community, within our political sphere, and so that's kind of what we wanted to address with the situation. And so we kind of thought the opposite of arrogance is humility. And so we kind of wanted to see what humility correlated with. Does it correlate with your political views? Does it correlate with some negative thoughts with the other party, antagonism or social vigilantism? And so the study that we conducted is that we looked at 392 participants for an online survey, and we took their political ideology, their political party, the various different types of humility. There's multiple types that I'll go into in a second, and then also their antagonism and social vigilantism levels. So we tested all these things, but I'm just going to go over some of the more significant results that we found. And so it's just some definitions. Oh, go back to those. Because I always think it's fun to see like what I score on these scales. So one of the things, am I socially vigilant? So if you agree with a lot of these statements, then you will probably be socially vigilant. And a socially vigilant person kind of thinks that their ideas are correct, and they want to share those ideas with everyone, and everyone else should have those ideals. So that's what those are. And one type of humility is religiously humble. And so if you're religiously humble, you will think that you'll be humble when you think of God, you'll think of the dependence of yourself on God and things like that, so it's very correlated with being religious in general. And then higher other focus is also another type of humility, and so you often have this more external point of view where you think you put yourself or others before yourself and things like that. So for our results, we found that people who were more religiously humble tended to be more socially vigilant, which is a little surprising because we would think that if you're more humble that you would be more self-inflective of your views and things like that, but we found that people who are more religiously humble tend to be more socially vigilant. And also we found that for higher other focus humility, they also tend to be more socially vigilant, which is also a little bit surprising for us. But then we thought about it and we're like, if we guess that if people have many different ways of caring about other people, and one of the ways is thinking that their views are wrong and thinking that if they insert their views upon those people, that they will have a better life and such. And we also found that higher the focus was correlated with being religiously humble. Yeah.
There's, of course, a swath of evidence put out recently to suggest that people are becoming much more polarized along ideological extremes, meaning that their views are becoming like more neatly packed into what we conventionally think to be ideologies, like liberalism, conservatism, socialism, and the like. But we wondered whether or not our common understanding of what it means to be liberal and what it means to be conservative have changed recently with the rise of figures like Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and various other popular ideologues in the public space. And we wanted to test whether or not either side has such distorted views of the other side that we collectively disagree on what it means to be liberal and conservative. So we set up another survey instrument, and we presented people with items that you see here down at the bottom. And we asked them to see whether they could strongly associate any given statement with one side or the other. We specifically didn't ask them whether they agreed with the statement. We didn't want them to consider it within their own views. We just wanted them to see if it associated with one side or the other. We also collected some data on their self-identified ideology, and they completed some scales on various types of polarization. And our initial findings are pretty cool, we think. In short, it seems as if when conservatives are trying to discern another person's ideology, they look to specific takes on specific issues that they find relevant. They ask, what might be your opinion on immigration? What might be your take on race and gender issues? And they build a picture of your ideology based on how all of the issues kind of fit together disjointly. The story for liberals, however, is much more intersectional. It seems as if a lot of the statements that fit into their own issue factors for conservatives were kind of jumbled together for liberals. And so the interpretation that we find is that it seems like when liberals are trying to discern someone else's ideology, they ask for their take regarding marginalized groups generally, without consideration of which groups which groups in particular to think about or which issues they pertain to.
Yes, we're doing a lot of other cool projects like a jigsaw classroom and with the right questions institute, trying to figure out what questions should you ask to have constructive dialogue, as well as continuing our current experiments. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.